For this video, I'm going to show how to create a cart model for an entire study area. Here I've got my dominant trees for California, and I'm just going to load that up in Blue Spray. And then I've got the FIA data that I downloaded off of the Blue Spray website. And here's precipitation of the wettest month. I think that's going to drive dominant species. Temperature is also important, and I'm just going to put on maximum temperature. Now, if I was spending a little more time doing this, I'd probably do each of these. Okay, so we've got our dominant trees. First things we want to do is just bring up the attributes. And for some reason, there's a blank column here. Let's go ahead and use that one for max temp. Again, be careful with your names if you're going to load this data into ARC. And then extract. And when you extract, make sure to do it from the right layer. Then I'm going to go ahead and insert another column. And that's going to be for the SIP, the wettest month. And go ahead and extract that one. Okay, and of course we could do this for any number. And then I'm going to go ahead and export that to a file. Dominant trees in California. Let's call that width. Covariates 1, because I tend to do this over and over again. Because I tend to do things like that, where I forget that I do not want this to be a shapefile. I want it to be a CSV. Okay, now this is a pretty big file. If I was going to do this for the first time, I would probably use a smaller area. And there's my file, so I just shift, copy as path into R, paste that in. Could just change the file name, but I got kind of used to changing all these slashes. Now I've got the R part and rpart.plot already loaded up. There's my data. I'm going to do an emit. I've already got my control in here with my split. Now I've already played with this a little bit. Oh look, got an error. Well, I got an error because my variables are defined different in here than they were the first time I did it. Not too surprising. Max temp and percip. I could spend a lot of time guessing on that, or what I tend to do is do the data $. Oops, that's not a $. There's a $. There's max temp. Now just remember to delete that. Okay, so it's not buried inside of our model and preventing us from doing prediction, right? So we do building the model, we want to have it without the data $, so that later on we can swap it out for different prediction. All right, now when I run it, boom, it works. Our plot, create a prediction tree. Now, obviously I spent some time playing with CP. If you play with it, again, you're going to get different results. But I'm just going to jump through on how to do the prediction. Now here when I do a prediction against the original data, I'm just putting a prediction with each of my field data points, right? Which we do sometimes, especially for validation when initially starting new models. However, that's not really what we're interested in, right? What we really want to do is we want to do a new data set. So back into Blue Spray. And what I'm going to do, first thing is create a study site. Now this is something that tends to take a fair bit of time. But here I'm just going to go ahead and do it quickly for you. Select the AOI, crop that guy. Now, if we take a look at this, settings wise, it's only 300 by 300 pixels, but that ends up being pretty big actually. This is short, so it's 100,000 pixels, which would be 100,000 lines in R. So that's actually still fairly large. So I'm going to go ahead and downsample this. Now when I do my final, I might go ahead and run it at that resolution or higher. But for the first time through it, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Then I'm going to go ahead and convert it to points. Okay. Now we've got a grid. Now I also want to remember which one that was. That was maximum temperature of the warmest month, because now we're going to open up our attributes. Okay, and the first things I want to do is I want to rename this. And that was max temp. And I'm almost positive I called that max temp in my original, but probably a good idea to go back, get rid of some of this stuff, load up my data, and make absolutely sure that that column is the same as the new one that I'm creating in Blue Spray. And it is, so I'm good to go. Insert another column on the right. Again, I want to make sure that the name matches exactly, so that's precip wet, wettest month. Okay, and then extract it. Again, this is another place where I need to pay attention because I tend to make mistakes. Precip wet, function mean really doesn't matter. It's only going to have 1 point per. And then this is now the file we are going to export as the entire study site 2, because of course I just did this a minute ago. Save that as a CSV, and now we are back into R, and here we have where we're going to load in our new data. So entire study site 2. So now there's our new data that represents our entire study site. We then do a prediction using our existing model against the new data. Yay, it worked. We put that into a new data frame, and then I'm going to send that out. And I'm going to go ahead and run that, but I want to show you what we get. So here's our entire site prediction. Now the problem is, you can convert this in an arc, right? It's a string, and it predicted our species. Looks like it actually did some interesting stuff. But that's kind of awkward, right? It's kind of awkward to have that in a GIS when we want to convert it into a raster. So what you can do is you can convert that prediction into a numeric field. And in R, you have to convert it first to a factor, which is a structure inside of R where it takes things like strings and converts them into numbers so they can be used in analysis. And then this strips off the string completely, so you just end up with a number. We put that into our final data frame, and we load that up and save that out. And now we go in here, we can see that we have numbers instead of those pesky strings. Now, you probably want to put them both in, right? So I probably should do that. Let's put final data. I'll just stick it back in there. Yeah, that should do it. And if we look at final data, yeah, now I've got my numbers and I've got my prediction, so I can figure out that 54 is redwood, right? Okay, so back into Blue Spray, we load up our entire site prediction. Oh, that's interesting. Thank you, Windows, for not redrawing things correctly. Okay, now we have our entire site prediction. Now, you could go in and measure the distance on this between the pixels, but I know it's about 0.1, so I'm just going to convert that to a raster. I'm going to make sure I have the right area, 0.1. It's going to convert each point to 1 raster pixel, so it really doesn't matter what we pick here. And you want to make sure you get the as numbers now. Okay, and boom, there is our predicted dominant species for California and a little bit beyond it, right? We probably want to crop it to California. But now we could save that out as a raster, export it to file, save it to a TIFF or an IMG, bring it into ARC, symbolize it, we're off and running.